country that's still very much in turmoil, despite the fact that we've been at war there for quite some time. It's a place where you've seen accomplishments, say, on education, improvements in a certain variety of other kind of services delivered by the government, development, roads, and things like that, but nothing near where you would need to see the kind of progress that people had hoped for after this long of a war and the expenditure of billions of dollars by the United States. So you've got a place that's politically a bit still in turmoil, a president who has been relatively ineffective, and by many accounts, an administration over there, a government that is relatively corrupt, and a security situation that hasn't gotten a great deal better.
Mainly due to the fact that I don't think the military being over there has necessarily made us any safer. One of the forethoughts of going to war in Afghanistan was because we identified the Taliban as being a central figure to the bombings of 9/11. And we went over there with the idea to engage them there so they couldn't engage us at home. Unfortunately, the Taliban and organizations like it are not necessarily nationalistic and didn't recognize borders in the way we would. And by basing it in Afghanistan, all they did was simply shift over the border into Pakistan and other areas. Another thing is in trying to hunt down these people, I believe that we've hurt our image as being a nation of democracy, a nation that is supposed to have a respect for general human rights to a certain extent in the way that we've interacted with them. I also feel that our war on terrorism can't be as old school war like it used to be. The idea of launching divisions and huge amounts of soldiers and pumping money and then dropping bombs into an area would work good if you had a very, say for instance we were fighting China, where they're wearing uniforms, how they identify themselves, they're another organized military. With terrorism, I think that the war has to be much more subtle. I think it has to be to where you have a team put together that has logistics that deals, for instance, like how we use special forces in the SEALs when we went after bin Laden. I think we need to be much more covert in the way we go about taking down terrorist organizations instead of overt. Another reason I'm not a fan of it is that the last time we were in Afghanistan and helping with the Mujahideen against the Russians, we kind of left them cold-handed. After the war was over, instead of providing them, support to help out schools or hospitals or things like that, there's no more war there, And I also, think that the only thing that we've really done in Afghanistan is make a lot of people who make instruments of war rich. We haven't done anything to really change necessarily the quality of life in an impactful way that, would make them look like, hey, thanks for helping us. Now, if we do leave, and as part of the leaving process, I think that we ought to continue a commitment, a non-military commitment to Afghanistan this time. I think we ought to do things to, offer scholarships or help out schools and help, provide teachers or medical training or medical supplies and things like that. Based on, one, the damage we've done as a military in waging a war in their country, and two, because I think if you help people in that way, I think your chance of creating a friend instead of a wary enemy is much more successful. There's nothing wrong with protecting yourself, but extending your diplomacy with war all the time has really hurt our image on the international level. So I am for troop withdrawal. I'd like to bring our troops home. I'd like for us to take that money we've been spending fighting the war like we have there and pump it into education, job retraining. There's so many other things. I was just reading yesterday, We got 3.2 million jobs in America that are going unfulfilled because we don't have people trained to do them. And so I'd rather train people how to make America better and give them jobs than continue to waste money on a war that is definitely not weakened to any large extent the terrorist organization that first attacked us. Any other questions?
I think that's good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so as a soldier who has fought in Afghanistan, do you support the withdrawal of our troops?
Yes, I do.
Why?
We've been over there for over a decade, and from what I've seen, there's not a whole lot that we've been able to work out. So.
How do other soldiers in your troop feel about the withdrawal?
As far as I know, a lot of them are on board as well. The only thing is that we are an infantry troop, so our job depends on going to war. So it's kind of a bittersweet thing. We definitely want to get out of there, but at the same time, that's what we do.
Okay. Did you ever talk to any of the Afghan soldiers, like, about how they felt about you guys leaving their country?
I've never really had a chance to talk to them one-on-one about that, but just from all the green on blue incidences, which is Afghan forces shooting American forces when we're supposed to be on the same side, those incidences are rising quite a bit, and that's a pretty good indication that they're getting tired of us being over there as well.
What do you think people, like, in the United States should know about you guys leaving Afghanistan?
The time is that we're not fully leaving Afghanistan in 2014 when everybody thinks that we're withdrawing. It's just ending combat missions, which they'll pull out a lot of the combat forces, but there's still going to be a pretty big presence until they figure out an actual date of when they're going to pull everyone out.
What about, like, have you talked to, like, the civilians there? Like, do they want you guys to leave?
For the most part, it's split. Like, it's going to be, what I believe when we leave, there's going to be a big power struggle and almost like a civil war, and it's going to be split with the people who were supporting us and then the people who were supporting the Taliban. So it's really hard to say right now how it's going to turn out, and it's just like the Afghan soldiers, they don't really want us there because it's their country, but they're definitely getting used to our support and our aid